Hey guys, I hope you are doing well. In this video, I'm going to be going over Albedo as a character to help you figure out whether or not he is a character that is worth your Primogems. I'll be going over how free-to-play friendly he is, how much investment he needs, his banner, and much more in this video to help you decide if he's a good addition to your roster. Feel free to skip to the chapters in this video that you feel are most relevant to you. To start us off, I'll briefly be going over his abilities and how he functions. I'll also be providing some gameplay footage in the background so you know what his abilities look like and get a sense for his playstyle. His E skill puts a flower on the ground. This flower will generate a field that deals geo damage at short intervals when you deal damage within the field itself. It has a very long duration and a very low cooldown, so this ability will always be up. Additionally, even though this field deals geo damage, it doesn't really get in the way of your other elemental reactions. The majority of your damage will be coming from this flower field. It scales off Albedo's defense, unlike his burst, which scales off of attack. So people build defense on him. The biggest downside is that this flower is considered a construct, meaning if you fight against a boss enemy, it will be destroyed fairly easily. The flower field deals more damage the lower health of the enemy. The flower can also act as an elevator, but this is more of a minor annoyance in combat and a minor convenience for exploration. His burst is basically a bitch slap that deals geo damage to enemies in front of him. If you use his burst within his flower field, he will generate an additional 7 smaller hits that will inconsistently hit enemies. It also has an energy cost of 40, so it will be up quite often. You will also get a 125 elemental mastery buff for your entire party after you use his burst. Now that we understand the basics of his kit, we can look at how much value he can provide to your account. Let's take a look at how free-to-play friendly he is. To measure how free-to-play friendly he is, we need to look at 2 things: his weapons and constellations. His best weapon is a free-to-play weapon option that was given a while back during his event. This is his best in slot weapon and will yield the most damage even in comparison to 5-star weapons. If you weren't here for the event and didn't get the weapon, then that's okay because his second best option is also free-to-play accessible. The Harbinger of Dawn at R5 is a great choice because Albedo is mainly an off-field unit. His health will always be full since he isn't on the field long enough to take damage most of the time, so he will always benefit from its passive. Now that we have established that his weapons are free-to-play friendly, let's take a look at his constellations. I will only be going over C1 and C2 since those 2 constellations in conjunction with a character's base kit are usually what determines whether a character is free to play friendly or not. His C1 is generally useless because, as I stated before, most of his damage comes from his E ability, so his ult uptime and damage doesn't really matter. His C2 provides a damage increase, but again, it's nothing to write home about. Overall, his constellations aren't going to impact or change your gameplay drastically enough to warrant pulling for them, especially in comparison to, say, a C1 Hu Tao, which can dramatically change how the character performs and plays. They also don't provide much quality of life. Albedo doesn't need any constellations to function the way that he does, and works perfectly fine at C0. From these 2 metrics, we can conclude that Albedo is a very free-to-play friendly character. Next, let's address his investment, or how long it will take for you to actually be able to play him, and how long it will take for you to reach his soft cap potential. His boss materials and ascension materials can all be found in Mondstadt and Leeway, so thankfully newer players won't have to wait long to start building him. In terms of leveling talents, as stated before, you can play him without using the burst, meaning you only need to invest into his E ability, which is quite affordable. In terms of weapons, you don't need to get his weapon to 90 since he scales off of defense, and doesn't benefit much from base attack. Getting your weapon to level 80 is sufficient enough. Conversely though, it is quite beneficial to ascend him and get his own character level to 90 because he scales off of defense. Unlike characters that scale off of HP or attack, there is no artifact that grants a large amount of flat defense. This means it is highly recommended to level up his character to 90 over other characters that don't scale off of defense. This will be quite expensive. In terms of artifact grinding, he has an artifact set that is pretty much built for him. This is located near the start of Inazuma, so newer players may take a little bit longer before they can jump into farming for his artifacts. Unfortunately, The artifact set is super good on other Geo characters, making it very competitive. What's even worse is that some of these Geo characters are characters you want to pair with Albedo, which means that you are going to want at least 2 sets of these artifacts. But this is if and only if you have these other characters. The Ocean Hued set that comes along while you farm for the Husk set isn't really used on very many characters and is kind of useless. This means that essentially half of your resin is going to be wasted when you farm for the Husk set. To add insult to injury, at the time of making this video, there is no artifact strongbox for this domain to help alleviate the Ocean Hued bombs. Though I will point out that it's not nearly as bad as some other characters and sets in terms of artifact investment. From these variables, we can conclude that depending on your current roster, Albedo can be mid to high investment in terms of resin. Now let's take a look at the banner he is on. So looking at the banner 4 stars, it's actually not too bad. It depends on what 4 stars you currently have though. Like for example, if you have a C6 Xiangling already, then this banner goes down in value. But assuming you don't have C6 of these characters, we'll go over their value. Xiangling is one of the best units in the entire game, and you can't go wrong with getting more constellations for her. Beidou is a staple in taser teams, and getting her C2 is a very big power spike. She can fit in a lot of teams with Aggregate or Hyperbloom, but is often overshadowed by Fischl. However, overall, I would say she is a solid unit to have, and her constellations can be quite good. Barbara is garbage and the landmine on this banner. I mean, she does have uses as a healer and giving thrilling tales. Being Hydro also has value for perhaps Bloom teams, but there tends to be better options in my opinion. As a whole, the 4 stars in this banner have pretty good value if you can avoid those Barbara bombs. Who does Albedo synergize with though? This section is probably the most important for determining the value that Albedo can provide to your account. I'll start out by saying that if you don't have Zhongli, the amount of team comps you can perform well in goes down quite dramatically. This is because Double Geo is the strongest resonance in the game, and Zhongli synergizes very well with Albedo and the team comps he is in. Double Geo can be used for Zhao and Ito comps, which greatly benefit from having Zhongli. Geo comps with Goro also bolster his damage quite a bit. Mono Geo teams are some of the best fun you'll have, seeing a bunch of Geo numbers flying everywhere. Albedo is basically the cherry on top for these team comps. You can also use double Geo Hu Tao if you aren't running double Hydro. You will want to fit in his ult in your rotation though, so you can get the 125 Elemental Mastery buff, which is very nice. Don't feel pressured to level his ult though, you only really use it for iframes and the EM buff most of the time. Double Geo with Zhongli is where Albedo shines the most, but you can honestly fit him into any team. He is one of the most, if not the most, flexible unit in the game when it comes to team compositions. So, overall, as a character, Albedo is a very solid unit. The banner itself has good enough 4 stars that you will get good value for each 10 pull you do. He can be somewhat resin heavy depending on the characters you currently have built up, since his artifact grinding is a pain. He does a good amount of damage with very little thinking, making him fun and easy to use. He's one of the most flexible units in the game while also being one of the most free to play friendly units in the game. If you don't have Zhongli, then his value diminishes. But even without Zhongli, he can fit into almost any team. I would also like to note that the Dendro Archon is coming out next patch, so that's something to keep in mind when you make your choice. Albedo is a jack of all trades, but master to none. This is a different type of video than I normally do. I'm still testing the waters to see what I can do as a content creator. Please leave your feedback or thoughts in the comment section down below. If you enjoyed this video and found it helpful, consider liking and subbing for more content like this. Take care and have a lovely day.